Hello and welcome back to the O3C podcast, a show celebrating the sheer, unadulterated and indeed adulterated joy of video games. My name is Jonathan Dunn and I am pleased to be joined by a special guest co-host, video game voice actor, self-certified Metroidvaniac, lover, fighter and gamer. It's Casper Marowitz.
It's dangerous to go alone. So take this 300-hour plus game and stay the fuck home.
Now, before you all start wondering whether I've traded Chris in for a cuter, younger model, don't worry. Casper's actually older than Chris. And he's not actually being replaced. But his credentials have been usurped in the short term because I absolutely desperately wanted to do these walloping, great big bumper spoiler special episodes, taking a full deep dive into Tears of the Kingdom. And, I mean, Chris will literally never finish it.
Well, he's never finished a Zelda game, as of yet, correct?
No, apart from Link's Awakening. And honestly, I'm not sure
he really finish it, though?
I don't know. He certainly saw me finish it, so... Yeah.
It is like 8 hours, if you know.
Yeah. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing.
That's about 6 hours more than the games he plays usually, so...
That is true. So I needed a companion, Casper it is, and we're ready to jump right in at the deep end as we spend the next few hours, episodes, seasons, who knows, we'll see how it pans out, but we are going to be covering every single inch of Nintendo's latest masterpiece, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. But before we do that, Casper, how are you?
I'm good. All things considered, yeah, pretty good. I'm kind of still missing playing Zelda, but I literally have nothing left to do in Tears of the Kingdom, so I just unfortunately had to move on.
Yeah,
and
it's, I mean, I couldn't even do that, and I started a brand new game on Breath of the Wild playing on Master Mode because I just couldn't get enough, and I hadn't even properly done everything in Tears of the Kingdom like you did, because I've still got some of those Koroks still to find.
And the only reason I didn't do what you did is because I played Breath of the Wild about 6 times.
Yeah. It's only my second time round. It's only my second go round for Breath of the Wild. So
I get a literal itch about once a year. Around the same time, probably around May, March, when it originally came out in 2017, I get that little, whatever I'm playing, I'm like, you know what I really want to do right now is play Breath of the Wild, and I wonder what's going to happen next year when, May comes around, and I'm like, it's probably going to be Tears of the Kingdom, let's be honest.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember at the time, I just thought, essentially, I mean, not quite 100%ing, but basically doing everything in Breath of the Wild and all of the DLC of that. And I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to replay this. It's too big. It's too grand.
Yeah. It is.
But
it is.
Tears of the Kingdom is 10 times bigger.
It is 10 times bigger. Yeah. The secret is to not finish them. When I say I played it 6 times, what generally happens is I'll play it for 40 to 60 hours again, and wherever I'm at, then I'll move on. It's not I'm not gonna get Koroks.
Yeah.
I actually never did that in Breath of the Wild. Actually, I did about 500 Korok seeds, and I was
lazy.
Lazy, very lazy. And there's still, this parental guilt of there's 400 little Koroks in there waiting for me to gather their poop.
They need a home.
Because that's what it is.
I mean, as a dog owner, I've definitely scooped well over 1,000 poops. Probably. Of course I have.
Oh yeah, I mean it's
5 years of dog poo. That's one a day.
At least one?
Say?
Just one?
On average.
Really?
I mean, it's usually two. It's usually two. Say I don't scoop. Say I don't scoop every time. Say my wife is scooping some of the time. Say some scoops go unscooped. Say some poops go unscooped.
Is that is there a rule you're crossing a street? It's a crosswalk. you don't pick that up. I mean, it's dangerous. Like, yeah, is
I'd-
that the?
I think you would get in serious trouble if you did not pick up a poop anywhere.
Well, yeah, but like I've seen that where it's like, okay, I live in New York, so it's it's a giant avenue. The dog suddenly like is doing the like the little like
The little bum shuffle,
the bum shuffle, and is dropping a bunch of crap in on the sidewalk, not on the sidewalk, on a crosswalk, and literally the light is about to turn red. You can't scoop it.
I mean,
you can't.
No, I mean, I don't know what the drivers are like in New York. I've never been, but I reckon certainly motorists in Cardiff would probably more than happily oblige and give you a bit of time.
Oh no!
I imagine in New York you would get run the fuck down.
You would be dead if you did that. Yeah, you would be dead,
yeah.
or you would get yelled at for being dead.
Yeah, yeah. Who's going to come along and scoop you up? Your dog's not going to come back scoop you up. Yeah,
no, yeah. So I think that's the one exception where in New York you're like, okay, it's a given. This is not going to happen. Like a bus is going to be shuffling that poop across the city. For the foreseeable future.
Well, if nothing else, hopefully this exchange will give the listeners a bit of a glimpse into the different perspectives we're coming from when it comes to our cross analysis of the game.
It's
But I think it's safe to say that we are both Zelda fans. I have played most Zelda games. You've almost certainly played all of the Zelda games.
I have played all of them, except some of the multiplayer ones. Like Triforce Heroes, which I've played a bit of, but I literally couldn't wrangle two friends to play with me.
You know what? I bought a copy for Chris and I bought a copy for Minty, and we still never got round to doing it.
I actually am in the process. I think I think I'm missing one copy.
Yeah.
I have two copies now, and I'm looking, and I have two complete copies, but I think I'll be looking for like a really cheap cartridge, maybe even chewed by a dog or something for the third one. It's really cheap to begin with. It's cheap to begin with. Like it's about $20 complete. I think I could get a chewed up copy for about $8, so I'll probably do that.
Yeah,
because I have three 3DSs, and I have friends who have three. I don't know. Well, I've also same thing with Four Swords Adventures. I actually finished that one on my own. So it's kind of like...
you can,
but it's, kind of...
I played a bit of Four Swords Adventures, and it was great. I really enjoyed it.
It's really good, and it's one of those where I'm like, this would be perfect on Switch.
Yeah,
they could easily, make that work, and it would be great, like an online component.
Oh, it'd be so good, wouldn't it?
It would be wonderful.
That would be great. Yeah.
But Nintendo is weird. They don't really like money, it seems. It's strange.
I mean, I think the real thing is they are very happy with the money they've got, and they are continuing to get.
the thing is, they don't need money. Is the real.
No, that's it.
they really don't.
Yeah. It's like me being like, I'm not a fan of like clutter. It's like I've got enough of it. I don't need more.
I think that, and then
Nintendo's clutter is money.
I think that, and then I open a little cupboard to put yet another Switch game that I probably will never play in the file. I literally got like 3 in the mail yesterday. I was like, okay, I got like Celeste,
nice,
the which I will not open because I have it on digital. I just want to have a copy. I was thinking yesterday, because we will probably, this is we're derailing, but we'll probably
we haven't even started. We can't derail. We're not even on the rails.
Probably do a post mortem on the Switch within the next year, I would say, because they're gonna more than likely announce their new one for next year. The rumors are like second half of 2024 it's gonna come out. So there's gonna be all these videos and podcasts about, hey, the highlights of the Switch, Yeah. And I was thinking, what are the games that define the Switch, And I was thinking, I wanted to have, if there was one, a physical copy of all the games that define the Switch.
That's nice.
And I was looking back, and I was like, okay, I don't have Celeste physical. I didn't get the limited run one, but Fangamer just released one that actually has a nicer cover, in my opinion. It's really
nice.
Beautiful. I'm not even I like that game. I think it's like an 8 out of 10. I'm not even a massive fan of it. I just wanted it. And I did the same with Stardew Valley. I was like, I'll get a physical copy of Stardew Valley, which is gorgeous. It's hand
there.
You have it? Right, yeah.
Copy right there.
Do you have the Fangamer one, or was a special one from Japan?
I don't know. It's a nice one. It came with this.
Oh, that's the Fangamer one. Yeah, that's gorgeous. Love that. Yeah. I got the simple, just the basic edition. But again, that's like if we're talking about the games that define the Switch in the first 2 years, that's, Stardew Valley, people were playing that for 3 months, and nothing else. So, yeah. Anyway, to get back on.
As a quick overview of our life in Zelda, very quickly, what's the first Zelda game you played?
First Zelda game I played was this little gem.
Oh, Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening, the original, not the Game Boy Color remake. The original release for the original green Game Boy.
Yeah.
Green and white, green and black.
Green and green. Green and green.
Green
Four different shades of green.
Shades of green. Yeah.
50 Shades of Green.
50 Shades of Green. The story of the Game Boy. Quick story. Yeah, I got the Game Boy, I don't know, when I was 8 or 9. I forget.
Yeah.
I didn't have television growing up. Neither of my parents had a TV, so there was no way I would get a Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, or anything like that. So I got a Game Boy. And that's the only thing I had for about 5 years, I would say. And I played all the, I loved it, but, probably played about 3 years other games, and then, the Super Mario Land, all that stuff. And then I somehow forget why I got Zelda. It was some magazine or something. Do you hear the plane?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to redo this. Yeah, I was about 10 or 11 and probably saw it in some magazine or something about Zelda and how it was a good game. And I put it in my little Game Boy, turned it on, and the mythical beginning where Link is on a boat. And that was mind-blowing to see that animated on a Game Boy. You know? It felt epic. It felt about as epic as the beginning of Breath of the Wild. It felt, it just was this incredible moment where I was, the music was great. Everything seemed on a different level than any other game I'd ever played on the Game Boy. It was not even close. And then the game begins, and and I wake up, and with Malin and whatever his name, the dad.
Talon.
Is it Talon?
Yeah, it's Malin and Talon.
Malin, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
Mario, look alike. And, start the game, go to the beach, get the sword. And it was just the most incredible experience I had ever had, probably as a kid, in any medium. I was just shell-shocked. I had no concept that a video game could be that, could have all of those elements. And, I had no concept of Zelda before on the NES or the, SNES, as you guys say. We say SNES. And it was just completely mind-blowing. I spent, I don't know, I forget. It probably took me about 30 times the amount of time to finish it that it would now. Because puzzles were just, it made no sense to my little brain, the game. But at the same time, it made complete sense. It was everything I ever wanted to do, And that was it. That was the beginning of the full-on lifelong obsession with Zelda. That brings us to this podcast. It's been my favorite series since. At almost every point in my life, the number one game, my favorite game, is usually a Zelda game. There was probably a point, like a year long, where it was Final Fantasy VII before Ocarina came out,
Yeah.
And that was about it. I don't think it's ever been anything else, Yeah, it's that was about it. it's always been Zelda for me.
Yeah.
So go ahead, tell your.
I mean, I think it's one of the cruxes of why me and you get on so well, is you can basically take exactly every single detail of what you just said and copy and paste it into my first experience with Zelda. To the letter. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Link's Awakening, about the same age. Took me ages. It's the only thing I had. I had no knowledge of the series before. And absolutely just, yeah, just captured my imagination like nothing else. And yeah, I mean, like, there were several Zelda games that featured in my top 100 list. When I did that all the way back at the very, very start of the podcast. Let me just get that list up.
Jonathan, do you hear the insane motorcycle
I can hear that,
thing?
yeah, but
Do you want me when you're talking? Can I like mute my mic or something?
I will be doing that anyway.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Perfect.
If it's while you're talking,
yeah, that's a
it's more
story.
of an issue.
I'll start my thought again, but yeah.
Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, I mean, I had several Zelda games in my top 100 games list, and it's so different. It's so difficult. Like with some game series, you can just sort of combine them together and be like, oh yeah, like, I mean, I'm not going to have like 10 different FIFA games in my top 100. I mean, I didn't have one, to be honest, but some of these games just do sort of blur into one. But the reason why Zelda was such a prominent feature in my top 100 list is because all of these games gave me such different experiences, but were obviously all quite similar, but also just so defining and so specific. So, you know, I had, what did I have? I had Link to the Past in there. I had Link Between Worlds. And I had Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Breath of the Wild, Oracle of Ages, Link's Awakening, The Wind Waker, Hyrule Warriors, for good measure. And yeah. I mean, I didn't know what to expect with Tears of the Kingdom. I knew that we were going to get something good because they really took time with it. And I knew that they didn't need to rush. They weren't going to release it until they were ready. And but I wasn't expecting what we got.
Neither was I. And my expectations were, you know, sky high, pun intended. It was just absolutely, you know, I trust that team so much, you know, and I trust Aonuma as a producer of the series, although he's messed up, but, you know, I trust him now, and I especially trust, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, and I think we should look it up because we're probably going to talk about that guy a lot. The director, who's been working on the series, I believe, since the Oracle games, actually.
Fujibayashi.
Yeah. I trust Aonuma and Fujibayashi with the series so much. You know, I think, and, you know, Miyamoto before them, of course. Miyamoto is the essence of Zelda, essentially. And I'm sure he still has some sort of supervising capacity where he comes in every month and like plays it for a little bit and says, you know, thumbs up or thumbs down as the famous GIF goes. Yeah. But he, you know, that team to me from Breath of the Wild, you know, I was like, look, there's no way this game is going to be anything but great. There was no question in my mind that would be either as good, maybe a little bit below Breath of the Wild, you know, but I was not expecting what we got. And I don't think anybody was, to be honest, you know, except the wankers who gave it a bad review or a mediocre review on just to get clicks. But I don't think any of us were expecting just what we got, which was... I don't even know how to begin, and that's why there's going to be 3 episodes. You know, I don't even know how to begin explaining what we got, but what we got was, you know, at least one of the most, if not the most special video game, you know, ever made. It is, you know, it's a miracle on so many levels. Yeah. You know, and of course, when you say miracle, what you usually mean is people put untold hours and,
Yeah.
had divorces because they put so much energy and love into, this work of art, essentially.
Yeah. So, shall we start at the end and make good on our promise of this being a spoiler special?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the story of this game, which for me is the key element as to why this game totally supersedes Breath of the Wild. I mean, I certainly didn't hate the story in Breath of the Wild, but it was mostly functional more than massively engaging.
And I would even say disappointing compared to the original, trailers and the impressions that, when you saw it, a lot of people felt betrayed when they saw the trailer for Breath of the Wild, and there was a lot of story beats with Zelda, and people expected that to be, in the game, and not memories.
Yes.
We will talk about that a little more in depth in a second, I'm sure. But I think people felt let down a little bit by the story in Breath of the Wild, even though I still think it's good. But yeah, they felt let down. And I think a lot of people, me included, went into Tears of the Kingdom saying, okay, story's probably not going to be great. It's probably going to be on the same level as Breath of the Wild. And I'm here for the gameplay, and that's fine. And I've always been here for the gameplay and the charm and the NPCs of Zelda. I'm never here for the narrative per se. That's why a lot of times people talk about, well, the narrative in this game. I'm like, listen, that's not why I'm here. Generally, that's not why I'm here. Yeah. Especially not with Zelda. When people are like, well, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword have the better story. I'm like, that's great, but I don't like playing them as much, even remotely. Yeah. So it doesn't matter.
I think with Breath of the Wild, I think it didn't really help that there wasn't a real huge amount of immediacy to it. Even though there was this pressing need to get to Hyrule Castle and defeat Ganon, you didn't need to hurry.
Which most people didn't. Heed.
And the story elements that unfold, they're all things that happened 100 years ago with characters who aren't around anymore. Now, Tears of the Kingdom technically does the same thing, but with the events being 1,000 years ago. So, I think the reason why it works better is because Zelda has been transported back to that time and is living it in her present reality.
Exactly. You
get the sense that it's happening concurrently, even though it's not.
It's not, but it is,
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, they're part of the larger, it's a mystery you're trying to solve, which is, where is Zelda?
Yeah.
What happened to her in the past? She was with me, for me 5 minutes ago, but a month ago. She was with me. We were hanging out. I don't know where she went.
Yeah.
And I don't know what she did. And, so the whole thing is, you get this thing of I need to solve this mystery. That's part of the whole arc of Tears of the Kingdom. And of course, solving a mystery, as we all know, is far more exciting than just watching a memory and be like, okay, well, this is what happened. I'm getting my memories back. But that's not, and there was a little bit of a, puzzle mystery thing, but not really. Because you still knew, everybody was telling you, this is what happened. And Zelda's imprisoned. We knew from I think in Breath of the Wild, immediately where Zelda is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing. You know where she is. She's holding Ganon, at bay from destroying the world completely. And so that's not as interesting because you genuinely, everything. You're filling in, it's sort of you're filling in stuff, and it was compelling, at least the first time. It was definitely compelling to get new memories in Breath of the Wild. But a lot of them were kind of fell flat, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them were...
I mean, certainly with the playthrough I'm doing at the moment, I remember that I just wasn't fussed about getting the memories, even the first time round. And I think part of that is because of it's a little less obvious in how to get them, because you have to hunt down the locations where the photos were taken, and it's not oh, I know where that is, so I can go via there on my way to somewhere else. Because
is it the painter who kind of shows you? Is that what it is?
No. So your album, your Shaker Slate has got the 12 photos, and you basically need to go to where those were taken. And with those, it's not I can see on the map where they are, like you can with the glyphs in.
But doesn't the painter? But doesn't the painter at the stable kind of point you in the right direction? Am I confused?
I don't know. Anyway, it's not as easy or as fun to sort of go and find those, and also you don't have the pull to do it to sort of find out what happened next, because it doesn't really change how you feel about anything really. And you're absolutely right that like that sense of immediacy you have in Tears of the Kingdom, because you're desperately trying to find Zelda, you want to know what on earth happened with her, so you can hopefully reunite with her in your present. And I know that me and you took quite different approaches as to how we gathered the pieces of the story in this game. And it does work much in the same way that the memory system works in Breath of the Wild, where there were a dozen or so locations to seek out, and at each of them there'd be a shortcut scene that revealed part of the story that was happening elsewhere. And like I chose to find them in a fairly random order, so that I was essentially piecing the whole story together myself, Memento style, out of order, which I really loved doing, because it kept some added surprise to the story. It made me, if anything, more eager to find the next piece, because I had these gaps to fill, and I was desperate to sort of link it all up, no pun intended. But you decided to follow the map in the map room to basically collect the memories in order.
Well, I think it's partially my dislike for Christopher Nolan, and actually that just... No, I mean, I don't really like Christopher Nolan, but that's a different story. I actually like out-of-order stories. You know, I generally find that fascinating when it's well told. Like Betrayal, the Harold Pinter play or something like that, you know. Where it's like, you go backwards in a relationship. It's essentially a relationship falling apart, but you see it backwards, which is a great play, and so anyway,
big shout out to Harold Pinter, my favourite playwright. Don't think we've ever discussed that. So
it's mine too. Okay, this is getting. It's really. You know why this is weird? We have the same favorite movie as well. It's weird. Yeah, Harold Pinter is
ridiculous.
Very much my favorite playwright. That's by far.
Stupid. Go away.
Okay, that's very strange. Not really. I mean, you know,
but
because he is okay. Oh, it's so strange. One of the top 5 acknowledged greatest playwright in the world. This is your favorite playwright. That's so strange.
How many people our sort of age really talk about their favorite playwrights anyway, or care that much about us? Yeah, exactly. Care that much about any playwright. Or know what
a playwright is. Actually,
yeah.
No, I mean, I adore him. Anyway, did you ever watch? You can cut this out, but did you ever watch Comfort of Strangers?
No.
He didn't. So it's an Ian McEwan book originally, but he wrote the screenplay. And it's directed by Paul Schrader. It has Christopher Walken, Helen Mirren, Rupert Everett, and Natasha Richardson. And it is. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it is eerie AF, and it is an incredible film. It is one of the Paul Schrader has about 10 like maybe 5. That was, as a director, that like these are the most underrated films ever made.
I'm gearing up to watch. I still haven't seen The Card Counter, but I've got it, and I really want to watch it before I see Master Gardener, because he sort of said that. Yeah, so he sort of said that First Reformed, Card Counter, and Master Gardener are sort of a loose thematic sort of trilogy.
So he's done that before, like Taxi Driver's one, and then Light Sleeper is supposed to be a second part, kind of a thing. Have you ever seen Light Sleeper?
No, I don't think I have. Actually, no.
Oh my goodness! It is talk about a time capsule movie with it's Willem Dafoe, but it is it's like if you want to see New York in the late 80s, 90s, it's an incredible film. Great performance, absolutely stunning.
Right, this is for our other podcast.
We could do a Paul Schrader episode.
Yeah.
I did meet him once, and I got him to sign my Taxi Driver screenplay.
Paul Schrader.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, it's one of my prized possessions. Yeah.
My brother says one of the top 5 moments of his life is when he met Harold Pinter.
My goodness.
And because my brother sort of directed and acted in Harold Pinter plays when he was at university. He took them up to Edinburgh and stuff like that, and then he bumped into him.
Wow.
Said one of the greatest moments of his life.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, let's get back to this.
What were we talking about?
Something about Harold Pinter.
So the reason, so we start with Betrayal. So I was saying, no, I'm not against finding things out of order per se. I'm not, this is not the reason I didn't do. I think the reason I did it in order is because, so I think I found, well, everybody found, I think everybody kind of gets the same first memory unless they really just leave, um, which is one of the first memories. I think it is the first memory, right? It is the opening Zelda Falls in the Past.
Yeah.
That's the one that's around Lookout Landing that they're kind of guiding you towards, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So then I did do one other one, which was like, I think when Ganondorf kills Queen Sonia, and that was I was like, oh, and then I was like, I kind of want to find these in order. I wonder if there's a, and then I realized, oh, Impa told me to come to this temple, so I did that, and of course she's in the map room with the murals, and so there's a mural. The mural has the icons in order of the story. And they kind of tell you that. They're like, oh, we believe if you did it, I forget exactly how it's said, but they're saying, oh, I think if you did the murals in order, that'd probably be, and then of course you can immediately look at the first memory you got, and you're like, yeah, that's the first memory on the mural, and that's the beginning of the story, so that makes sense. And then you look at the map, and and those little mural symbols are all over the map, and I immediately was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm going to put little markers and I'm going to write what order I'm supposed to do this in. I took screenshots on my little Switch and I was like, oh, this is going to be a super fun puzzle of getting them in order and going to all these different places. And then like, ooh, what's the next part? Like a serial or a TV show where you're like, oh, I want to get next episode. Where do I go, to get the next episode? So that was kind of enticing to me. And that was fun to me, is to look at the entire map that is in the temple and see these little symbols and be like, oh, this is a puzzle game. I can place this mural, I gotta go here, and this mural, and so my brain started finding that appealing. And I decided to do it that way, And I'm really glad I did, because some of the later memories, I fear, like, if you found, let's say, the Master Sword one first, that would be a little bit jarring, because then you'd probably immediately know what happened to Zelda. Even if you don't.
I think it got to a point where I'd got about, I think I'd picked up maybe 7 or 8 of the memories sort of as I was going around, and then I just wanted to fill it in, and I just sort of went for all of them. So in a way, like, I don't remember when I saw the last bit, because I think it was probably in the same sort of session when I was just like, right, I need to find out what happens, and I just sort of like made a beeline for all of them. So we haven't actually spoke about the story itself. No. So let's get into it.
You want to do a quick...
This is a brief overview.
And then we can dig into every memory with like
every single thing.
Yeah.
Link and Zelda stumble across the remains of a 1,000-year-old zombie Ganondorf. Zelda ends up being transported back in time to the founding era of this Hyrule. Link's Master Sword gets afflicted by the gloom, which has corrupted all the metals in the overworld of Hyrule. A literal upheaval of the land has occurred, revealing a whole host of sky islands and hidden depths beneath Hyrule. Zelda manages to grab the ruined Master Sword from Link through time. 1,000 years ago, Zelda witnesses the rise of Ganondorf, tries to pull together forces to oppose him, but the king of Hyrule, Rauru, and his wife Sonia, Rauru realises that the only way to defeat him is to sacrifice himself to imprison him. Zelda knows that he will again rise in 1,000 years, and Link needs the Master Sword to defeat him, so she does what any person would do, and she eats her magic stone and turns into an immortal dragon that slowly restores the power of the Master Sword over 1,000 years, and it turns out that the dragon you've seen since the start of the game circling the skies is 1,000-year-old Zelda, returning the Master Sword to you so that you can defeat Ganondorf with the help of the Sage's power, reborn through the modern champions. But Ganondorf has the same trick up his sleeve, eats his own magic stone, turning him into a giant evil dragon, and you have a ridiculously, unbelievably cool dragon fight in the sky between the Light Dragon Zelda and the Dark Dragon Ganondorf, which sees you come out victorious, and through an explosion of Zelda's power of time, her dragon body restores to her original body, and you have the most extraordinarily emotional dive through the sky to catch her, and it's quite possibly the single most powerful and emotional moment I've ever witnessed in a video game. What did I miss?
That was masterfully done. Because that's very tough to do what you just did, and a lot of people won't notice that. But as someone who has to read copy in all sorts of various ways, That was very well done. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now we can dive in and
Yes.
speak about the story for 5 hours.
Yes. You lucky listeners.
So I already said that the memories, the reason, as you know, they're so much better than in Breath of the Wild. Besides being narratively more interesting to begin with, better story. But you're solving something. You don't know where she is. So finding a new bit is super exciting, you know. And they kind of, even, you know, gameplay wise, kind of more fun too, because it's every tier is inside of like a little like giant lights, you know,
a geoglyph.
Symbol. Yeah, geoglyph, a light glyph. And so you have to find where the tier is, which doesn't become apparent until you get to the tier, you know. So you have to get pretty close, and you kind of can guess. You're like, oh, it's going to be somewhere kind of pivotal on this figure, and it's kind of fun to figure that out, you know, which already is more interesting than like, hey, here's a picture, try to figure out where this is, here's a puddle, here's a memory. And I think every single glyph has a Korok seed, so that's the other thing. So that's another fun thing. So you're like, okay, I found the tier, here's where's the Korok seed, you know.
And also the design of the glyph relates to the feature of the story. So it might be that, you know, I mean, the obvious one, like the glyph that's in the shape of the Master Sword, is about the Master, or relates to a bit with the Master Sword and stuff like that. And it's just quite nice. It's just quite nice. Although having said that, I do wish that you could turn off how big they then appear. Once you've unlocked them, they then appear massive and glowing on your map. Yeah. And I really wish you could turn that off. But that's
true. That's part of the low lights, like the UI stuff.
We'll get to that.
I even found, like, I almost wish they would, like, even in the world itself, I almost wish they would dim once you find the tier. Because, like, for instance, in the little like beach where you find the one, I forget what glyph it was.
Yeah, the one that goes round and round.
That little section is so pretty. You know, and I kind of find I wanted to see the whole aesthetic of that place without the light glyph. You know, that's detail.
Play Breath of the Wild,
right? Well, some of it is a little, but some of it is drawn a bit. But anyway, I hear you. So that's already number one. They're just much more compelling to find in the game, which is great. They gamified them more, which makes sense because that's what Nintendo does. Like, was this as fun as it could be? No, let's do it more fun. You know, so that's their motto, and that's I think it's actually the motto on the building in Japanese, but so there's also a couple. If you look in your Switch, once you unlock the memories, there's and that's also part of but I think it's the same in Breath of the Wild. But it's part of the fun. Is like, oh, I found memory 2, 3, 4. Oh, I don't have 1. What's this memory? Because 1 is not a glyph. The Deku tree.
That's right.
Memory you get. Yeah. And so I actually did not get that one until after I got the Master Sword, because I don't think I went to the forest until after I had the Master Sword. So I didn't have the first part of the thing, which actually, so I got that one last, I believe, or at least, because there's a few memories you get. There's a Minoru memory you get. Yeah. Then there's one that you get from the story itself. Like, you have to do, I think, 4 dungeons and stuff. So you don't get all of them. And of course, you don't get the final one from the glyphs until you get all 12 glyphs, which is very well done, because it would be a massive spoiler. So the first one, I guess, is the Master Sword memory. And so it's interesting. They use and it's, I think, in Breath of the Wild as well, but they use the phi or phi sound for the Master Sword from Skyward Sword.
And I like the fact that they refer to the Master Sword as her as well, which obviously ties in with that. And that's just quite nice.
It is, and as much as I hated phi in Skyward Sword for most of the game, the final scene in Skyward Sword where she kind of says goodbye for some reason got me, and I got very emotional about it. Because I'm like, well, you're still the Master Sword after all. So and so I just hate how much she interrupts you.
Yeah.
I don't particularly hate the character. But so it's because the first game chronologically, the Zelda Timeline is yeah, but Skyward Sword is the first game.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's the first. It's before Ganondorf is Ganondorf, and actually, I think this one kind of negates that because it's demise, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Because King Rauru and Sonia are the founders of Hyrule.
This Hyrule
Is that? But usually all Hyrules are the same Hyrule according to the timeline, right? It's not. It just means like this is 100 years later and Link is born and blah blah blah. As we all know, the timeline doesn't hold up to scrutiny whatsoever. But anyway, Fi is canon in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, so that is a closer link to Skyward Sword than, let's say, other games.
Yes.
Right. So anyway, Queen Sonia and King Rauru founded Hyrule. So that's technically should be the furthest past. But then Demise is supposed to precede Ganondorf, and Ganondorf is in Tears of the Kingdom 1,000 years before. So anyway, doesn't matter. We can all acknowledge that it's not a big deal. Well, we can't all acknowledge, but you and I can acknowledge that it's not a big deal.
At least that. We can do that.
So we know it can restore itself, right? We already know that Fi can restore itself because in Breath of the Wild it also gets messed up, and Zelda puts it in the Deku forest, and it regains its strength whilst Link is sleeping for 100 years. So we already know that it can restore itself. Right. We already know, hey, this thing can restore itself, so when we see it destroyed at the beginning of the game, we're not that fussed. We know it can, get stronger again. However, what the first memory tells you, what the Deku tree tells you, is that it actually gets stronger, much stronger, if it's bathed in sacred power, which is something we did not know and which is very important for this story.
Yep.
I assume a lot of people probably rushed to the Deku forest to see if the Master Sword was there, actually.
I mean, that's what it's what I was thinking.
Right.
And when I can't remember, it was somebody on the Discord said, "Oh yeah, no, I've just got the Master Sword back," or something. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Was it Minty? I think.
I think it was Minty.
Yeah.
And I was like,
"Who doesn't have kids?" So he was ahead of us.
Well, he does now. He does now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, okay. If it's just a case of getting the Master Sword back, I'm just going to make a beeline then for the Deku Tree, because presumably it's going to, like, Zelda will have put it back there to then, glow up for 1,000 years. But no.
Yeah, and you find out, hey, not only is the Master Sword not here, but you get your first hint as to what will happen, of course, with the sacred power making it stronger. So then you're like, okay. So it's going to be stronger, which is good because Ganondorf absolutely annihilated it in 2 seconds, and he wasn't even at full power whatsoever. Yeah. He literally had just woken up from a nap and was grumpy.
Yeah. Good night.
Yeah. So that's the first memory chronologically, and then we have the first glyph memory, which is Zelda falling from some warp that she managed to create in time, because it seems that she works well under pressure. We already knew that from Breath of the Wild. Yep. Anyhow, so she finds herself in seemingly Hyrule, but she talks to Queen Sonia and Rauru, and they present themselves as the founders of Hyrule. So they're like, oh, you're from the future, and so wait, I'm getting confused. Yeah, Zelda. Yeah, and Sonia says immediately, "Oh, you have light and time power."
Yeah,
and I sense a blood connection. So Sonia has a sort of a sixth sense, and she can immediately tell this is the truth, not only is it the truth, this person has 2 forms of power, which is unusual because everybody else here has 1. Minoru or Sonia or Rauru have 1 type of power. And we can assume that Zelda has 2 because she's actually a descendant of these people, and the bloodline went through. And she got, both of their powers, essentially. And there's even Queen Sonia has a Triforce tattoo, which is interesting. Because there is no
notice that.
Yeah, there is. I rewatched the things yesterday. She has a Triforce tattoo on her hand, Queen Sonia, and it's interesting because there is, as we know, no mention of the Triforce in either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, which a lot of people complain about because they're obnoxious. So that's an interesting little tidbit. And she even quips a joke when Zelda is seemingly befuddled that she can't get back to her time immediately. That Sonia says something about wisdom taking time. And of course, Zelda is the Triforce part of wisdom. So that's a little bit of a inside joke. And so we also see a little bit of Hyrule of old in the memory. We see one shot, and it looks quite drastically different. It's just a lot of greenery and not much of anything else. And I was thinking that would be, especially since you see another part later, that would be a very fun DLC if we could play Hyrule of the past.
Yeah.
Although that would be a lot of work. So probably not, but that would be quite wonderful. Okay, so then we have the next memory, which is time traveling typical stuff, like the Pura pad ending in Minoru's hands and seemingly becoming the influence for the Sheikah Slate, which is a full circle kind of Back to the Future. Well, what came first, chicken or the egg kind of thing. Yeah. And then we have the first mention of draconification, which is Minoru, Rauru's sister, explains that to swallow a secret stone is to become an immortal dragon, one blessed with eternal life. To become an immortal dragon is to lose oneself. That is why it is forbidden. And of course, whenever any of us have seen that memory, I assume is the first time you get a vague feeling like, maybe Zelda will have to turn into a dragon, but I certainly hope not.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even think that at that point. I just thought, oh, cool, that's a nice little bit of lore explaining what the dragons are. The 3 dragons flying around.
Well, so my brain did the protective thing, which was, oh no, is Zelda going to become a dragon? And I'm like, oh, it's probably just a lore to explain the other dragons, who, of course, are going to be a bigger part of this story somehow. Yeah. Because I certainly didn't want to think, oh no, she's like, is Zelda going to have to do that?
Because at this point, I don't think either of us realised that it was the Light Dragon Zelda circling around Hyrule.
We might have to quickly say, but maybe this is a good point to say this, that the first, when you wake up as Link in Tears of the Kingdom, and you jump off, and you get the credit sequence, literally the first creature that pops in the sky as you jump, in the background, is the Light Dragon.
Yeah.
But of course, the developers being geniuses, the Light Dragon, from a distance, looks a lot like the Lightning Dragon.
Yeah. I mean, they've all got similar silhouettes, haven't they?
Yeah, but she has a sort of yellowish white hue, right?
Yeah.
But from a distance, it could be. Is it Farish? No, I forget the Lightning Dragon.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
So from that distance, you're like, oh, this is cool. It was one of the dragons.
Yeah.
You don't think about it too much. At least I didn't, and I think most people didn't. So she's in the screen, and then even more brilliantly, the minute you land in the water, there's a big splash. You talk to the first construct who shows up. I think he gives you the Pura pad immediately.
Yeah.
And then he tells you the first thing, which is, did you hear this little?
Did.
It's on airplane mode too. That's fantastic.
Impressive. Must be important.
Oh, Wi-Fi. Let me turn that Stupid Wi-Fi off. There we go. There we go. That won't happen again. So yeah, you land in the water, and you go to the construct, and he's the first construct you see, and he gives you the port pad, which Zelda has given him. We'll find out later. And the first mission you're given is to find Zelda. He says, "Hey, she told me, come find me." And you get the little mission, find Princess Zelda.
Yeah.
And literally in the background, right under that title, is the dragon. Is Zelda Dragon.
It's
floating
genius.
there. It's absolutely genius. It's something that you will not notice in a million years until you, except if you play it again.
Yeah.
And
it's unbelievable.
Incredible.
It's cheeky.
And she's even right, and she only floats, if you start looking really into it, she's only floating at the spot where she transformed.
Yeah.
Because she knows, she seemingly at least, because we don't know how cognizant she is, but she seemingly at least has the, at least the instinct that you're awoken, and she has to await you at that spot.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. So yeah, I brought that up because, right, I think people have found out on randomly by going to that light dragon to farm it essentially or something, and just immediately finding the Master Sword.
Oh, of course, yeah, you would.
Right.
Yeah.
And I for some reason, I don't know if I think it's just because Nintendo is kind of doing everything to not make you do that.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, I guess you could find it, and also of course the Master Sword is locked behind 2 stamina wheels.
Of course.
You can't. So even if you found it immediately,
which is
you'd
smart.
be like, it's smart and also amazing. But it is like, okay, if someone randomly was floating and found the light dragon.
Yeah, but it's not easy to get to the light dragon either, because the light dragon
she's usually higher up.
Much higher.
Much higher up. And she doesn't, and I think that I would like to confirm. But I feel like she doesn't show up as much at all until you unlock the memory.
Yeah.
And that needs to be confirmed. I might be completely off base here, but I feel like maybe there's some sort of code that sort of keeps her away from Link.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, that would be anyway. So that's the first memory where really someone could put 2 and 2 together, or at least have an inkling of it. Ganondorf is introduced. Attacking the palace with a swarm of Molduga. I'll do that again. Ganondorf is introduced attacking the palace with a swarm of Moldugas.
Yes.
And a fantastic remix of a blend of the Molduga theme and the Gerudo theme, blended. Absolutely stunningly beautiful music. Rauru starts to repel them with a little bit of power, and is then aided by Sonia and Zelda, lending him their power. Zelda seems very surprised by that possibility, and it, of course, foreshadows what happens at the end when you get to transform Dragon Zelda back into herself, and you are aided. Link, does it with the help of Spirit Sonia and Spirit Rauru. But it's also implied later that Link has some sort of power, because he didn't just it wasn't just their power. I think that's part of the last scene that we see. I think they imply that his love for her, or his courage, his whatever it was a power in itself. Anyway, so we learned that,
because I'm just thinking in that moment, like possibly and obviously it's not confirmed. And we're not even talking about this point in the story quite yet, but let's. It's the only moment where all 3 parts of the Triforce come together with Link, Ganondorf, and Zelda. So it could be the power of the Triforce that actually is the thing that restores her body.
Right. No, he destroys the stone, so you don't have Ganondorf's stone.
Yes, right.
Well, not necessarily, because he did just explode. And there's that giant cloud, so maybe that energy has been released. Yeah, it could have been released. Bits of
power floating about, maybe.
Yeah.
It's got to go somewhere. It's got to go into somebody's hand.
Exactly. Because that's usually what happens. I mean, like, we don't know exactly the... but whenever the game ends or one of them dies or something, that
the power goes somewhere
else.
And it goes into the next generation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So possibly. There'll be a 10-hour video on YouTube somewhere about that. I'm sure
it'll be added to the timeline at some point, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. The next timeline. Oof. I don't think they'll do that again. They've gotten so much.
It's bullshit.
I'm sure they've gotten so many obnoxious, little letters and death threats about the timeline not being.
Well, I'm glad they got my letters.
Dear Miyamoto, I hate the timeline. Yeah, a few thoughts. I hate the timeline. You're not respecting it. Drop dead. Yeah, basically. I'm not 10-year-old. I'm not 10 years old, by the way. Yeah.
Not everything has to be everything. Not everybody has to be related to everyone.
No.
George Lucas. Right.
So Ganondorf's plan is thwarted. But he's a crafty fella. Yeah. And he feigns fealty. Shows up to the castle and pretends that he's, this lovely little, forget what the name is from the Game of Thrones. But let's wait for this lovely ambulance.
Tell you what, I can do this bit. And then I've got even though he is defeated. He's got so many tricks up his well, he doesn't. I don't think he's even wearing sleeves. Because he's got guns and he wants to show them off. And he basically pledges fealty to Rauru. But obviously it's part of his crafty plan. Zelda's got a bad feeling about it, and she's like, also his name's Ganondorf. It's like, let's not vote into power somebody called Hitler's son.
And she hasn't fallen for the thirst trap the way the internet has too.
Yeah, exactly. That is the other thing.
Because she's into Twinks, as we know. So.
Yeah. Twinkie Links. Let's not go down that path.
No, should I not say twink? Is that going to be offensive?
No, it's absolutely fine.
I don't think it's offensive.
No, it's not at all. I was just about to. I was about to go down that path and decided against it. Araru says, obviously, I know. Obviously, I know he's a piece of shit.
He says, "No shit, Sherlock." That's while keeping close. Have you ever read The Art of War by Sun Tzu? Keep your enemies close.
Exactly.
Closer.
Exactly. Yeah. Rule one.
Yeah. I wrote that book actually. Sun Tzu lifted it, but that's.
What happens next?
Zelda. So there's a little. Ganondorf actually is super passive aggressive, and
obviously,
and is insulting Rauru. In a very Shakespearean Iago kind of a way, like very undermining and like, oh, isn't it wonderful that someone of your alien nature could suddenly meddle with us humans and marry a beautiful woman? Like, isn't that nice for you? Racist kind of, and
basically, basic racist.
Yeah, and, not a furry. Okay, that's fine. What's next? We see
next?
The next memory is we see that recall
training montage, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
The
80s remix of the Zelda's Lullaby was absolutely stunning.
I'd love that.
Oh my god!
Runs to the top of the steps of Hyrule Castle.
Yeah, you'd love that. There's about 5 versions on YouTube. None of them good.
No,
I'm sure there is. I don't know. Actually, an 80s Zelda album. I would listen to that for sure if it was well done.
But these scenes are genuinely well written is the thing. The characters are well written and the dialogue is good, and you do kind of want to sit in on these moments, even when a cynic could say that these are filler memories. Yeah. It's it doesn't have a big reveal or anything like that, but you want to see it. You want to see the moment with Zelda just speaking with Sonia about just everything, and it's wonderful.
I watched it yesterday as sort of a short film because I just put them all in a row, and to take notes. And it was very much like this would be a great little short film.
Yeah.
The animation is excellent. The framing is really good. There's some really nice composition. It's very compelling on all levels. The music's fantastic. The voice acting is better than in the first game by quite a lot.
By a long way. Yeah.
And it's just overall you can see they put a lot more effort into every aspect of the narrative. I think I firmly think that team was scouring all reviews of Breath of the Wild, all the stuff they saw online, and for all the nitpicks, all the little criticisms, and I'm sure they took it to heart. I'm sure they had their own, oh man, I wish we had time to do that in Breath of the Wild, or oh, in hindsight, this would have been better, and
But then also, it's the case with all good sequels is you hit the ground running. You don't need to set everything up, and the reason why so many of these story beats hit so hard is, and we'll come on to this, it's not just because they're really, really well written, really well told, really well performed. It's building on the back of 200 hours story you played before, and not even that. It's building on the history of Zelda
series,
from 30, 35 years.
Yeah. And, it is 100% doing that. So yeah, the next memory is we see it's just a lovely little hangout scene, and it's just we see Sonia using the recall power, kind of trying to teach it to Zelda, and she tells Zelda that she also has a sacred power, which is that a third power? Is that light, time, and sacred, or is it the light? Is that part of the light power?
That's what I
it's maybe part. I think it's part of the light. I think the light is because it seems the color at least is exactly the same that she used to contain the Ganon Calamity Ganon. The power she uses to to rebuild the sword. It seems like the same. I think it's the same. I think it's the light power. I think she just uses a different word to say the sacred power, but light and sacred kind of similar things. She tells Zelda, Sonia says, you have this sacred power that can dispel evil, which again she used in Breath of the Wild to keep him contained a little bit. And so of course they're setting up her bathing the sword for 1,000 years. Sonia brings up Zelda wanting to get reunited with Link, which Rauru was not aware of Link at that moment. So you can tell, okay, Sonia and Zelda chat quite a bit, and they're, talking about their, boyfriends, husbands, or something. I don't know. And it's nice. It's a nice little touch. Like, oh, she talks to Sonia on the side, and they're friends. Zelda then essentially describes Link to Rauru in terms that can only be described as wildly passionate. And it's like it's brilliant because that was something that was a little lacking in Breath of the Wild, because they don't have time to hang out. You see them in the past when they were kind of had a contentious relationship because Zelda was upset that Link was so good at his job and she was not, and she was upset for all sorts of reasons. She just felt like he was a witness to her failures, and she was annoyed that he was always there when she was trying to do things. And she probably also just liked him, which is a similar feeling sometimes. And anyway, so we never got to see in Breath of the Wild. We saw glimpses, like when he gets almost killed. You can see that she clearly cares for him, and
but
it's never a lot. It's never a lot of time.
It's not the same as like. I mean, we're 5-6 years on from there,
right? Exactly.
I've been married to my wife for 4 years, almost 4 years. So the way I felt about my wife 6 years ago is not the same way I feel about her now.
Of course not. I've been with my wife we've been married for 17 years this year. So we've been together. So the way you feel is much more complex than nuanced. But and
also it just means that, like, it's a much more engaging story because the
Yeah,
relationship means that much more, you know?
Yeah, of course. And but you know, even the little scene you get if in Breath of the Wild, if you I think you only get it if you did all the beasts. There's a little post thing where you hang out with Zelda and you're like, you know, doing a few things, and it's nice. It's a nice little thing, but it's really at least I felt that way when I played Breath of the Wild, which was, man, I wish there was more time for them to hang out and stuff because they seem to have a really fun rapport, and you know, you always want to see a little more of that.
You get the sense or at least it's the start of something more than anything else.
It's the start of something, you know. but it's a little bit like, oh, I wish there was a couple more scenes, you know. And so this is great when she tells Sonia that, because you get this like real sense of, oh, they really have a relationship now, and it's deep, and it's she cares about him a whole lot more, you know, and she has full trust in him. She's seen him she's seen him save the world. She's seen him, you know, whatever they were doing during the reconstruction, probably very helpful. And she just absolutely deeply admires and loves him, and it's quite clear, and it's wonderful as a player too, because you're playing that guy, and you're like, oh man, I really want to find her and help her out, you know, which is, you know, you do in Breath of the Wild, but it's kind of like almost I don't want to say generic because that's unfair, but
well, like you're right though. It's sort of like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a given, you know. It's just like because of archetype A and archetype B.
Right. Did you ever? Sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah. Did you ever play Fallout 4?
No.
Right.
No, I started.
Well, that's actually fine, because that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. Is they the concept of Fallout 4 is, hey, you're gonna get frozen in this Fallout. Their thing is, we're gonna freeze everybody in here, and we're gonna save you to wake up when the world is hopefully a little better, right? That's that, because every Fallout has a shtick, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so you're frozen with your family, your wife, and your kid, and something rough happens where they actually some ruffians come in and they steal your kid, baby, and you don't even know what happened to the wife. I believe she died. But the thing is, because you don't get to, this is a character you create from scratch. This is not someone, you know, anybody. And because you actually don't get to hang out with your wife and kid, they're trying to give this like, oh my goodness, this huge emotional beat. Like you have to save your kid. Oh my God, they stole your kid, and the kid's also actually the kid's a baby, so there's no personality whatsoever. And so so you're like, I don't really give a damn about that generic kid. You know what I'm saying? And it really feels like the devs are like, oh, we got them now. Yeah. They're going to be real motivated. They're going to be real motivated to save this kid. And you're like, you know what, guys? No, I don't care. You know, so of course, to get back to Zelda, it's absolutely not like that. First of all, as you mentioned, there's decades of love for the series, so you automatically love any installment of, at least I do, of Zelda and Link. You know, it is an automatic affection, no matter how little story there is. It's Zelda and Link, you know. But there was a little bit of that, where it was like, okay, go find Zelda, which was also the brilliance of Breath of the Wild, was the immediacy of it. The, like, you know, not trying to overwhelm people who were new to the series, and just like, yeah, here it is. It's easy enough. Go save her, or go do whatever you want, you know? Yeah. So for that game, perfect. But yeah, it did feel a little bit like there was something missing. So I really personally loved any kind of scene where you see Zelda talk about Link, or, you know, express her desire to see him again, and full trust in him and all of that. I think it's really nice. And of course, you see quite a lot of that if you are the type of player who likes to explore every inch. There's tons of it all over the game, which is absolutely delightful. There's tons of little hints of Zelda and Link's relationship, or just what they were doing, and it's fantastic.
It's beautiful. It's genuinely moving. Like when you first go to Link's house in Hateno Village, and
absolutely loved it.
Realize that Zelda had moved in. I got very emotional. I'm welling up now.
Yeah.
And speaking of welling up, she had her own well.
She did, right next to the
She was
house.
welling up.
And there was a lot of, and actually it's her little hideout, and there's a lovely little thing about Link, actually, a little writing about Link, and you find his hair tie that she kept lovingly in a chest, which is delightful. And I love that there's a photo of her horse in the house, her golden horse that you find later. There's all these little details. It's so beautiful. And of course she got rid of your weapon collection, because that's what you do when you move in. You got to get rid of a few things to make space. I mean, like, you can't just have
the collections are the first thing to go, aren't they?
Well, yeah. At least in storage. I mean, I didn't find a storage.
Not for me.
I didn't find a storage room in Tears of the Kingdom with his shit, which would have been a nice touch.
That would have been good.
A little shed that was built afterwards with all the weapons. That would have been amazing if they had kept
been a nice touch.
All the weapons that you put up, like in a little, like, in a shed.
That would have been good. Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, get back to the story. So the next scene after that is quite a bit more dramatic. It is Puppet Zelda makes her first memory appearance. And I think at that point, probably most players have probably at least kind of seen Puppet Zelda in various ways. Well, I mean, you see her in the Blood Moon. You don't know it's Puppet Zelda, but you see her at the beginning. There's at least, I feel like most people have an inkling that there's a sort of Zelda figure that is, there's a plane overhead, and I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a bus? Might be a bus. Wow. That is, okay. The delights of recording in New York City. I mean, this is Queens too. It's not even. If I was in my old apartment, this episode would not have happened. Let's just put it that way. My apartment in Manhattan would not have worked. Jesus, it's still going. Okay, it's going away. Okay, so as I was saying, Puppet Zelda. So this is the first appearance of Puppet Zelda. And we, in the memories at least, in the glyphs, I think at this point, I don't know where that memory is, but it's certainly not in one of the opening areas, so you at least probably have seen Zelda in the sky over the Hyrule Castle, and you've probably seen a couple more, maybe you've done a pen mission or two, and you probably have a good inkling when you see her in the memory. At least I did when I found it, that there was a fake Zelda going around, doing a lot of weird stuff. And they actually play with that a lot, because a lot of the pen missions, we'll go into that later, but a lot of the pen missions kind of start off with like, oh, Zelda made them do something a little off. Is this Puppet Zelda, or is this real Zelda? So this was that kind of like, hey, which Zelda was actually, is this the real Zelda we're talking about or not? Or is it a Yiga Zelda, which is a different story altogether?
Of course, yeah.
But so there's a lot of like Zelda stuff going on, which again is part of the mystery of finding Zelda, which is the whole thing, and it's quite compelling. At least I found it compelling. So that memory kind of hits quite well when you're like, at this point you're like, it's probably a puppet Zelda that Ganondorf is using, and of course that's exactly what it is. She appears and she tries to kill Sonia. But Zelda and the Queen, who are smart, were aware that there was a fake Zelda already. And they, stop her, and the fake Zelda disappears into a puff of red Ganondorf gloom. Yeah. And, or whatever it is, because it's pre-Demon King, so it's Ganondorf power, evil red power. And Ganondorf appears seemingly out of nowhere and absolutely murders Sonia. Yeah. And sociopathic, maniacally laughing Ganondorf meme is born. That's...
yeah.
I'm sure you've... It's a
horrible moment.
It's a horrible, horrible moment, because at least at that point, I don't know. And that's also why I'm happy I did it. I think I might have... It's nice to already have it's nice and horrible to already like Sonia and see that moment.
Yeah, and care about her.
And care about her.
Yeah.
It was, it's quite strong that they make you care about a character who's really seemingly is only in the memories. At this point, is nowhere in game, and you only seen her in about 3 memories. But she's the voice actress is actually excellent. I was thinking about that yesterday.
Yeah,
she's much better than Zelda. It was fine, But like the Sonya actress is really good. Very warm voice, very good delivery, and immediately has this performance where it's this caring, very caring about Zelda, protective. Not patronizing, very helpful, patient with her, and with Rauru has this playful rapport. She kind of makes fun of him and his, maybe hubrisy ways and stuff. But she, it's which he describes himself later as having hubris. But she clearly loves him, which is also nice because it's like you don't know what this if this was a forced marriage or something. She clearly likes him a lot and. So anyway, I think that the writing was very strong for her.
Yeah.
Her design is fantastic. I think she looks great. The animation's great, and her voice actress is excellent. So at least in the English version, I don't know about the other ones, but when she does get killed, even though you barely have seen her for more than 5 minutes altogether,
really,
you care about her.
You're gutted. Yeah.
You're gutted, and it's
And also because you know what it means for the story, because of what then happens next.
Yeah,
because
and
Ganondorf takes her secret stone.
Right, and nobody likes a sociopath. So
no, I mean, apart from
except for everybody on the internet. But yeah,
yes, yeah. Unless they're hot, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so yes, as you said, he takes her stone, and Demon King Ganondorf.
Demon Borf. Ganon King is
right. As you said, he steals her stone after murdering her, and Demon King Ganondorf is born, and it's a suitably terrifying and superbly animated moment, actually. And the internet got horny on Maine, and proctologists and gynecologists around the world start dreading the release of the Ganondorf amiibo that's coming out in December. I mean, it's full circle.
It's very true. It's very true. Fortunately, it's already sort of red and brown. So,
however, the work it probably as difficult as the effort that Zelda and Link put into destroying Ganondorf, removing amiibo Ganondorf. Probably a lot of work to not do permanent damage.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
And
that moment is brilliant, and especially when you see obviously like the gloom just spread out across the world. You see all of the monsters sort of come into being. And I mean, I get a chill every time I see a Lionel anyway. But when you see a Lionel being born, it's not a beautiful moment. You're not waiting for it to stand up for the first time and blink into the sun. It is fully realised and fully horrible right from the off. And it's a really you're like, yeah, okay, this is bad.
It definitely is. It's really superbly animated, and the composition of him getting the blood moon up, which is ostensibly the first blood moon ever.
Yeah,
and he gets it up, and you just see his back. That's always a very powerful enemy shot, and they've done it with Ganondorf before, but it's just the back, and he's just sort of seemingly raising the blood moon.
Yeah,
it's just a majestic shot, and it's extremely powerful. Yeah, I was. It's really truly leagues above the Breath of the Wild memories for sure.
It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary, and there's a wonderfully sort of emotional, dramatic moment that happens because Rauru obviously goes to Sonia, so he can be with her. She's already died, but he wants to go and see her. But then he knows that he can't. He's got to run. Like,
Yeah.
and that. I mean, what an awful thing to see your wife murdered and then not be able to be with her.
Well, no, actually, sorry,
oh no,
sorry to correct you. Um,
did he
I
take her?
think so. What happens? And I forgot about that. By the way, I'm only correcting you because I watched it yesterday, but I would not have remembered. Zelda actually uses the Purapad to teleport all of them the way you use it to teleport. And my cat is chewing.
Yes, you're right. I mean, it's a moment you don't like to see, like, your heroes be humbled.
No.
And to see, like, the hero of this particular part of the story have to run away is or any of them. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, this isn't
run away,
good,
yeah.
you know?
Run away with his dying or dead wife. I think Zelda says you got to help Sonia. She either has hope that she's still alive or hasn't noticed, or it's unclear. And she's probably dead at this point, but she does think she maybe they can save her or something. So she tells Rauru, who's trying to shield them from Ganondorf, but the shield is immediately. That's another thing you see his power immediately. His shield is immediately turning to nothing, and they barely have time to escape because Ganondorf's power is immediately just out of hand. And then the next memory is just Ganondorf raising an army of loot-dropping goons, which is fantastic as well. Maybe probably the least necessary glyph, because it's kind of just him consolidating, and we kind of saw that before, at the beginning. It's still lovely to watch, but it's probably the least important one, at least on a narrative level. It's just like, we've seen this, we know, Then Rauru plans to stop Ganondorf with the help of the newly created sages, which he created with the extra stones that he had in the secret room, and we don't exactly know why and how. Seemingly,
you
they were...
You don't want to trust people with something unless you have to, even if they're really good people.
Right. Seemingly, these are alien tiers, because we don't know where the Zonais come from.
Yeah, of course.
Different planet. And anyway, different dimension, different game, maybe.
Different split from the timeline.
Yeah, well, clearly.
Yeah. Is that extra fourth split where the hero just didn't care? He just didn't even try. The hero died, the hero won, and the hero just gave up.
Or the hero just decided to collect.
Hero needed 5 more minutes. Slept in.
Or their hero didn't finish any Zelda games, and it's stressed out. Yeah. Except Link's Awakening, yes, but which, of course, is the one game where nothing actually happens. So, thanks, Chris. That's the one game you didn't need to finish. So Zelda warns, this is the next memory, Zelda warns Rauru that she believes the man that Link and her found at the beginning of the game under the palace was Ganondorf. And that Rauru won't be able to stop him, even with the sages, and he might or probably will die. He says if that's his duty, then so may be, being very regal. He tells Zelda that it might be different this time because she's there, and that he believes she appeared in their timeline for a reason. And that's what she starts saying, why am I here?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Now, she wasn't there to help with that particular moment. As we find out, it plays out pretty much exactly how it played out before Zelda appeared in the... you see my cat in the back.
Hello.
That's Holmes. Yeah, so we know that she didn't help to stop Ganondorf. So we still don't know why she's, at least, chronologically, we don't know why she's in the past, or if there is a reason for her to be in the past, but at least Rauru believes there is a reason for her to be in the past, and she starts thinking about that. Minoru tells us about, this is the next memory, Minoru tells us about what else? The imprisoning war. This is actually not a glyph. I believe you uncover this one by doing her temple, and then Minoru's temple, and then she gives you the best version of the imprisoning Warren. That should have been the only version as far as I'm concerned. She gives you the whole spiel, and you see this pretty amazing moment where Rauru stops Ganondorf and drains him of magic and tells him that when he awakens, Link will be there to mess him up. Which is very powerful, except we know that he didn't mess him up.
No.
But he will. Yeah. And that is why, now we know why when Ganondorf woke up, he said, "Oh, you're Link? Yeah. I'm not too worried about you, dude."
Yeah.
And that's the sword? Okay. Yeah, not so now we know why he knows who we are when he wakes up.
Yeah.
Which, again, if you think about Back to the Future logic, makes sense, but not really makes sense. The next one is the Master Sword travels through time and space, which we've done at the beginning of the game. We've put the Master Sword where Zelda Dragon is, and seemingly some sort of power that either Zelda's doing as a dragon or something time travels it.
A bit of something, a bit of time magic.
Right. Travels through time and informs Zelda with the Phi sound, so Zelda can understand the Phi sounds. That Zelda can restore her power, the sword's power. Zelda knows what to do now. And I feel like this is kind of one of those memories I'm glad I didn't see, because that's when you start being like, okay, I know what she's gonna do next. Yeah. So next memory is the sacred power can make the sword stronger than ever, but it needs centuries to grow. Zelda's talking to Minoru about this, and she's telling her that she will transform into a dragon to give enough sacred power for enough time. Minoru tells her that she won't be able to ever become herself again.
Yeah.
Zelda understands the sacrifice and is determined to help Link in Hyrule. Minoru also says she will be there in spirit to help Link Minoru also says she will be there in spirit to help Link even if her body perishes, foreshadowing Mech Neru. Which is awesome, but we'll talk about that later in about 5 hours. That scene is cool. It's a little bit exposition-y. I liked it fine, but it wasn't as, again, not as necessary. Although you do get a sense of, actually, you do get an important piece of information, which is that Minoru. A lot of these scenes are good at setting up the credibility of the rest of the game in a way.
Yeah.
This one gives credibility to when you find Minoru and she says, "I've been in the pad the whole time," and that makes more sense if you see all these things. And I've been, I'm here to help you, because she promises Zelda that she will find a way to help Link. So this is actually, I'm wrong. It's an important, it's an important memory. But yeah, they all are really, except the Blood Moon one. But yeah. So anyway, so now all the story pieces are in place. So this is, I think, the Master Sword memory. Zelda gives the Pura pad, which, by the way, Pura has the same owl kind of hat that Minoru has.
Yeah.
So
nice touch.
Before we found Mech Neru, I thought that when we were trying to find the sage, it would be like we're going back to Lookout Landing to be like, actually, Pura, you're the sage.
Yeah.
And I thought
to
that
be
for
fair,
a while.
when I looked at Pura, I wasn't looking at her hat.
Right, you were looking at her eyes, of course.
Yep.
In the
like a
beautiful...
good conversationalist.
Yeah, great. Well, she says check it a lot. It's cool. Linky. She calls you Linky.
You're asking for it. No, I'm not saying that. No.
Editing out.
Cut that.
So anyway, Zelda gives the Pura pad to a construct, who is of course the first construct you see in the game, who gives you the Pura pad, gives you the mission of finding Zelda. So Zelda swallows the stone. The sky turns dark. Dark Zelda lullaby plays on, which is stunning, and I deeply encourage anybody to go back to listen to that. Her eyes turn dragony, and she cries out, Protect them all! As a giant bowl of light explodes and Dragon Zelda emerges, shedding a tear that will likely produce the first silent princess flower. And then, of course, making canon that every single silent princess flower... Sorry. Therefore, making canon that every single silent princess flower stems from Zelda's tears. And so how do you feel now about stealing those from the graves littered around Hyrule, you gosh darn asshole? I mean, like, just... I felt terrible. I did take one from a grave at the beginning of the game because I didn't know
Very precious.
I didn't know how precious or not they were, and they're actually quite easy to find. So
yeah, I mean, 1,000 years is a lot of tears.
It's a lot of tears.
It's a lot of tears.
Yeah, but it's sad. That's profoundly upsetting. And of course, once you're done watching that memory, the first thing you get back to, which this memory, by the way, is only unlockable if you have all the other memories, which I think is great. And I think they should have maybe done that with a couple more, in my opinion. That you cannot see these memories until you've seen all the other ones. And you get the shot of Link, of course, waking up from the memory, finishing watching the memory, and surrounded by the Silent Princess tears, which is
unbelievable,
extremely powerful. I think the shot actually, that shot of her eyes turning into the dragon eyes, is masterful. It is It is fantastic, like pure. You see that in the movie, you'd be like, "This is a absolutely brilliant shot." It's just stunning. With her crying, protect them all. It's just insanely powerful. And this gigantic thing of light, I was devastated, as seemingly most people were.
Yeah.
When they talked around it for months. Thankfully, I was not spoiled.
My God, I would have been
beyond livid, and might have sent death threats, even though it's not my style.
But the story's not quite over, even though we've now seen all of the memories. Because
there's one actually. Well, go ahead.
No, I was literally just about. I was going to ask you what happens next.
Right. Okay. No. So there is one more. So of course, as most people did, although I talked to a friend who didn't do that immediately, and I was shocked. We immediately took to the sky, as close to where the memory of Zelda Dragon is, and tried to find Zelda in the sky, and immediately land on her head to get the sword. At least that's what I did.
It's unbelievable. I just can't bear how epic it is.
It is so insanely epic, and even just doing that gameplay thing and thinking, is that really what I'm gonna do now?
Yeah.
Like the whole time you're like setting up, like, okay, what's the closest island, or what's the closest tower I can get to, because she's high up. And you're like, what's the closest place? So you look, you're like, okay, is she there? Is she still there? And you're like, yeah, she is. Okay, I'm gonna fly to her. Is this really what I'm supposed to do? And you get to her head.
And it's there.
Of course, you start taking it out, and the stamina thing. I'm like, oh, then that's so brilliant. Stamina wheels start, going down, and you get it. You get the sword out, and it is insanely powerful. And I think that's when you get this other memory of it's just Zelda holding the sword, the broken sword, inside of a glowy sacred power bubble, and like kind of healing the sword with the power. And she says, "Link, you are our final hope." It's very extremely moving.
It's incredible.
And it's as everybody says, it's by far easily the greatest taking out the Master Sword of any of the Zelda games.
Yeah.
And most of them are incredible.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear.
They always build up to it with an extraordinary sense of reverence and like, the right sort of emotional tone.
But to top Ocarina of Time, for instance, I mean, you wouldn't think that possible. Like the first time you pull out the sword in Ocarina of Time and you turn into older Link, that is just So we're talking about it beats those moments easily, which is insane, Or the Link to the Past one, where you get to the clearing in the forest with the lighting and like all the little
lovely.
animals. It's all these moments in Zelda games are profoundly magical, or in Link in Wind Waker, where you literally awaken an entire castle from slumber.
I mean,
we're talking about
some of the greatest moments in video gaming.
The top 50 greatest moments in video games,
and this
absolutely annihilates them. Completely, without a doubt.
It's
without
the fact
question.
as well, like, in any other game, you could easily see it you get the last memory, and then like almost like there's a cutscene, and the light dragon comes down, and Link takes the sword out.
Right.
You could very easily see that.
Yeah.
They could have easily done that, but the fact that that's not what happens. It's still all in your hands, and it's so much more. It hits so much harder because you're doing it. It's always your journey. The game's not making you go anywhere.
It doesn't take, and as much as I adore the Zelda series, it's definitely been guilty of taking player agency away. In some of the later 3D ones for sure, or the DS ones. But it is well, no, but not in this episode. But part of why I adore Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and I get extremely protective and annoyed when people talk about wanting the old games back, wanting the old kind of games back, whatever F that means, is because there's such an incredible respect of player agency in both those games. To a degree that honestly is unparalleled. I mean, it's just there is a respect of the player. Of not stealing moments away from the player, and really giving the player as many, even when they do direct you, to do it as subtly as possible. Like for instance, the beginning of Breath of the Wild, when you run out the cave, the camera does move away from you, and you see him running, and you're no longer playing, but it's done so well.
Yeah. But it exaggerates what you're experiencing.
Exactly. It exaggerates you running already. And
Yeah.
it frames it, and it takes it gently away for 2 seconds, just to give you that, breathtaking moment and just goosebump inducing moment. And then it gives you back the reins almost immediately,
But on the flip side of it as well, those moments where it does make you just have you like press A to do something, like pulling the sword out in in Breath of the Wild, takes down your heart containers. In this, it takes down your stamina wheel to open the doors of the first the first temple on the Great Sky Island. You have to have your extra heart container so you can do that. These are essentially press A to do something.
Yeah.
But it means that. But because you know what it means, because you've had to go through it, so like what it's taken to get those extra heart containers or to get those extra stamina wheels, it's got weight to it, and obviously that is never more so than the absolute climax of this game, which is when, after Ganondorf has become the full Demon King again. You fought him. He becomes the bigger, badder Demon King. You fight him again. Is there a third phase? Can't remember. I'm sure there's. So you fight Ganondorf, then you fight Demon Ganondorf,
King Ganondorf,
and then Demon King Phase 2, where he's even harder. I'm sure that's like a.
Yeah, I don't remember. I thought it was 3 phases, but you might be right.
Yeah.
Or maybe what? I think you're right. I think what it is like the Dark Souls thing, where like. In the second phase, he becomes harder after you deplete a certain amount of energy.
Just have a look, just so I can actually talk about this. Yeah. Okay.
I think he becomes harder to hit.
You fight Demon King Ganondorf, and then when he's just like, well, I say just regular, just your regular run of the mill Demon King. He's a human Demon King.
Yeah.
And then he unleashes all of the his magic and his power to become like the I think it's the Master of the Secret Stone Demon King Ganondorf. And that's sort of almost got 2 phases in and of itself, because he gets even more powerful after you get his after you get his health bar halfway down or whatever it is. Phase 3, he consumes his stone, draconified Demon King, the Demon Dragon. You are riding on the back of the Light Dragon, Zelda. This is coming out of a 10-year-old mobile phone hardware, it's fucking ridiculous.
And it's flawless. Like,
it is.
Nothing goes awry.
Like, you are doing this extraordinary aerial battle that is so cinematic and so and you never feel like it's forcing these cinematic moments.
No,
you are in control. It just simply is so well made and so well staged.
Remains fun to play, which is generally you kind of like I think of a God of War thing. It's like generally at some point they're gonna take the fight's gonna be less interesting so that they can be more cinematic, and that's never the case.
It's never the case.
No.
And it all leads up to the moment where you defeat him, and what actually happens? What happens to make Zelda turn into, like, what actually happens? What happens to the Light Dragon at that point?
Well, so she just drops you on him again, and this time, I think it's once you've gotten his health completely down. You're either dropped off or you're already there, depending on what you're doing, and you're right at his eye, and this time you really destroy the barrier of the eye, and it tells you to press A to plunge the Master Sword into his eye,
that's that's like the secret stone part of him.
Yeah, and he's annihilated into a gigantic explosion, but the real thing is, as you were saying, the reason why it's never cheap is, let's say, even if you, like, for instance, the way it's also designed incredibly well, because a lot of people will not get the Master Sword. That's what we haven't discussed this, but it's optional. You don't have to get the Master Sword, so that's kind of a thing where you're like, I thought about that. I'm like, well, what happens if you don't get the Master Sword? Because it's the whole thing, and the whole arc of the story is around she's sacrificed herself
to get you that sword.
To get you that damn sword. So if you didn't use it...
what an ungrateful little shit you must be.
Not just that, but like, that would just be... If there was a way to beat him without using the Master Sword, narratively, it would be, garbage, to be honest. No, but it really would. So it has to take player agency away for 1 second to be able to finish that arc. Because if someone has not gotten the Master Sword, they're going to get it because she's there.
Yeah, and you don't want to plunge bouncy stick, long stick into.
And I actually wonder how does that work actually? Like, if you haven't taken it out, does she pop it out of her head and like throws it to you? Is there a video, a movie of that? We should look that up actually.
Yeah.
Because it must be. No, absolutely not. But maybe, But yeah, so you have to do it.
With all of the weight of everything that comes before, pressing A to win, to boil it down to its most simplest command, is enormous. It's absolutely enormous, and yet that is still not the best thing.
No,
because in the cinematic moment that follows, through some sort of miracle of magic, of power, of time, of something, maybe the power of the Triforce coming together, maybe, I don't know, we're told it was not possible, that once you turn into a dragon, you cannot go back. Against all of those odds, Zelda's body reappears out of the Light Dragon as the Light Dragon disappears.
Yeah, with the power of Link. And
all of a sudden then, Zelda's body is plummeting through the sky, down to the surface of Hyrule, and you are diving. And I'm gonna struggle to get through talking about this without shedding a tear, because essentially all you're doing is pressing a button to dive, and then pressing a button to catch her. But my God, it is the most emotional moment I've ever had in a video game. The way that is paced, the sense of the amount of time that it leaves you to dive is enough time to fully contemplate the entire weight of the story, of your relationship, of the history, of everything that's come before, of the severity of that moment, of the hopes that are going to come after, what's going to be next for you, what's going to be next for, these characters, their relationship, the world. All of this is flashing through your brain as you are essentially just pressing a button. And the sheer euphoria and relief when you get that command to catch her instead of just dive is... It's everything. It's been earned through 35 years of extraordinary video game development, extraordinary storytelling. And the longer and more invested you've been in the Zelda games and the Zelda series, the more you are rewarded in that one single moment. And that goes beyond the scope of what you can do in an individual game. It goes beyond the scope of any sort of cinematic moment that you could create and conjure on any console, no matter how powerful it is or in how high frame rate or resolution it is, because Nintendo knows actually what matters, and that is the heart of its story and the heart of its audience. And in one single moment, it fuses those two things together in the most extraordinary way, and gave me, and I know it gave you, the single greatest moment we've ever had in a video game. And I was in bits, and I am struggling now to not be in bits again at essentially what is press A to win.
I'm so glad that I specifically cornered time, because we have kids. I have two.
Yeah.
I have a wife, and I specifically took a time where I'm like, I have 2 hours probably where I wouldn't be interrupted, because even if it was something loving, like my kid waking up to come and get me to cuddle or something, or my wife asking me something, it would have been so upsetting that moment would have been ruined. And I mean, it's true. Like it's strange how we do that with games. Like if you're approaching the end, like you have to kind of, especially if it's a game that means that much to you, you have to kind of find a way to, like, I cannot have this moment ruined. I cannot. And I didn't even know. I had no idea. What I was basing it on Breath of the Wild. I was like basing it on, like, it'll probably be better than that, but I was basing it on, like, it won't be that. It'll be fun. It'll be good.
I was sure that Zelda was gone, and I was moved enough by just that sacrifice alone. And there was even part of me that thought, I hope they leave her dead so that sacrifice means something. There was part of me that thought that.
Yeah, part of me too.
Until the moment when I was forced to relive all of that stuff.
I know.
And it was very, and like it, like honestly, all I could see was like in between those flashes of all of that stuff, I could just see myself diving to catch my wife. Like that's what it was. It was,
yeah. I was making sounds that I'm glad were not recorded. It was, like, the thing where you're like, gasping, like audibly gasp. Nobody was around me. I was not doing it for effect, like audibly gasping when I realized that I had to dive. But, it was interesting because I was actually telling my wife while I was playing the game. Once I got the Master Sword, and I think most people felt that way. A lot of people were like, "Oh, it bummed me out because I immediately had to finish the game because I couldn't handle not knowing."
Yeah,
and I didn't do that. And you neither. I mean, we played for probably a good 80 hours more, or something like that. At least quite a few, dozen hours more before we went to the Ganondorf fight. Which, of course, you could do right after getting the final memory easily. You could do it after 60 minutes if you're a psycho on YouTube. But I didn't do that. And I even didn't do a lot of story stuff after that for a while. I think I did do the think this was before I did the part where you find the puppet Zelda. But I really didn't rush with the story whatsoever. But I did tell my wife, who I generally don't, really share much about my video game story stuff. She doesn't, not, she doesn't care that much. But also, like, this is generally not a thing. But I was telling her, I'm like, because it was, of course, after I got that final memory, it was just in my head for days and weeks, just constantly, thinking about what happened to Zelda. So I just told her we were on a walk, and I was just telling her the whole thing. And she kept interrupting to ask details that I was forgetting, and but rightfully so, because she doesn't have all the lore and all the Zelda years and all that stuff, and she kept saying, like, she's not dead. She's not dead. She's not dead. There's no way. It's Zelda. Like, she's gonna be back. And I was like, no. I was like, look, I would generally agree with you, but I said, you don't understand. Like, this, the way they've set this up, it would be earned, and people would accept it. Like, it's not, it's not the same as usual. This is like, and we all know, like, it's cyclical. So this Zelda's dead, but there'll be another Zelda, and like I think most people were like, no, this really could be it. They set it up so wonderfully, where there's really seemingly, because all the people who could help with that, turning her back, are dead, or or even the ones who like Minoru, who was there and said, I can't help you with that. Nobody can. You can't come back from that. And they believed it. It wasn't like that's what they thought.
They said that's what it was.
That's what it was, and the rules changed, and maybe, as you said, it might be because the evil part of the power Triforce, or whatever the power that Ganondorf embodies, was weak, and weakened and like released in the ether. Maybe that's part of it. I mean, who knows what, but it doesn't matter. It's done in a way. And that's the other thing too. The reason why I firmly didn't believe that she was coming back, and I told my wife, I was like, it wouldn't be earned. There's no way they're gonna make that feel earned. I just don't see it. I was like, look, I generally agree. She's like, no, you're wrong. I was like, look, I generally agree. I would generally say yes. But this is a much darker tone. It's a much more mature thing, and they, it feels earned. It feels right in an awful way that she did that. And when she does come back, I was kind of like, oh no, there, I had a little bit of a, is this going to be cheap? Is this going to be cheap? And it never did. It never went there. It never felt cheap. It was so well done.
It would be like me. Honestly, like I said, like when I was like going through all this stuff, and I was just like, oh my God, it felt like what it would be like for me to be diving to rescue my wife. In that moment, if that was me and my wife, for me to imagine just going, narratively, this would be better if you didn't come back to life.
Well, it's not that it would be better.
Sorry, guys. She almost came back to life, but actually, I thought it would be had a better story. But that's how it felt, like the relief.
Yeah.
And when you realise all of that moment, convinced. that overrode everything else,
Same.
and
that's another testament in the narrative of the story. Is that it really, they really make you believe, no, this can't happen. They really, like, they hide the magic trick beautifully. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this, it's like the twist is hidden. Like, you're like, no, because they set up the rules of the lore so well. That's part of what it is. It's the mythology of this whole thing, as we just discussed, was really well set up. Every scene has something that sets it up. Every single scene has something that sets up the end, or understanding how she's going to turn into a dragon. And because of that, you're like, no, there's no way, because they've explained this extensively, and they've really made it clear. You don't come back from that. And I was, there's a hope. Of course we both hoped that there was, some part of our brain were like, there might be a way, but I just don't see it, And it's done simply. It's not like, oh, well, they're going to explain there's no time for that, but they're not going to explain why this is possible, but they kind of do at the after scene, I think.
Yeah.
And Minoru,
yeah.
I think, is the one who says, essentially, yes, Sonya and Raru's spirit were helpful, but Link actually did a lot of that, kind of implying Link has powers that are beyond just Raru's power or his hand and stuff. And that's the other thing, too, is Link becomes Link again. He gets his arm back. That's the other thing. His arm, which was destroyed, is back.
Yeah.
It all feels incredibly earned. It never feels cheap, which is a real achievement, because that kind of thing, it's like when it's done in stories and movies where like someone was resurrected. Not not to get all religious, but it's generally not super believable.
No, no, exactly.
It doesn't work very well.
You always think, oh, of course they're bringing that character back so they can sell more toys of it or whatever.
Right, or just like
cynical.
Or even if it's not cynical, it just doesn't work quite well mechanically. It's just like it's a little tacky. It doesn't really work. There's probably I don't want to spoil this movie, but there's an old movie where it's done pretty amazingly well. But I'll send you the name after. You probably saw it in film school. It's a Dreyer movie, Carl Theodor Dreyer. Have you seen it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not sure if I have.
No, I'm kind of spoiling the ending, but oh well.
Yeah. Anyway, right.
Yeah. So it's generally something that just doesn't work well. That's done not only works well, but is, as you said, like the single most powerful moment in a video game. And overall, as someone who loves most arts, one of the strongest moments in any art form I've ever seen ever. And this would be a great time to actually, not to speak ill of the dead, but Roger Ebert always rubbed me the wrong way when he said that video games were not an art form, and other people have espoused that same stance. And their stance is because you're playing, because it's a game, and because you're engaged, it's not art because it's not being, and I would push back really hard and say this is exactly why not only it is an art, but it can be a more powerful art because of your deep involvement in a way that's not passive. It's a deep involvement. It doesn't just involve your brain. It involves, all of this thing. The fact that you are a part of this moment, 100%, is integral to why this moment is powerful. And it's with this game mechanic, which is already just one of the most brilliant game mechanics in any game, the flying and diving. And it's done so beautifully well, and we'll talk about that at length later.
Yeah.
But it is because it is so integral, and you're like, of course this is the final moment of gameplay. Of course this is this. It starts with you diving.
Yeah.
It starts with you diving, and it ends with you diving. It's like and it's really it's this whole leap of faith concept, of like really like what would you do to save someone? And you're just and he doesn't have his powers anymore. We know that too.
No,
so seemingly he doesn't have a glider or anything. He
just wants to be back with her.
He's just
Christ,
he's just old Link.
Go again.
Doesn't have the Raru powers that could help him. Doesn't have the glider, and he just goes for it. It's just that there's no, and you go for it. That's the thing. You're part of that moment completely, and it's so powerful.
It is.
And when they land in the water, it's just like,
It's the greatest story. It's a shame, really, that the gameplay is so shit. And
this is.
I'm gonna wrap this up.
Yeah.
Because we're this is going to be a whole season, isn't it? I love it. I can't wait. But our thoughts on the gameplay of Tears of the Kingdom are going to have to wait for another time. We haven't I feel like I know we've just gone massively in depth in the story, but it feels like we've only just scratched the surface of anything in this game.
Because we haven't even talked about the story that unfolds with the all the temples, everything, and all the other stuff.
There is so much still to come. We're still going to talk about the world, the NPCs, the side quests, the Yiga
adventures.
all of the new abilities, all of the shrines, the caves, the wells, the new enemies, the dungeons, the bosses, the sky, the depths, the mini bosses. We're going to be literally we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about everything, and it's I really hope that I really hope that you come back to listen to us to dwell in the absolute glory of this game. Right, what do I do now? If you want to chat to us, you can do that. We're on social media at O3C Games on pretty much everything. Now, also, we have our O3C Discord open to the public. Head to our website, o3c.games, and you'll find a join link there to come and join us talking about Link there. Why not? If you're enjoying the podcast, share the podcast on your social media platforms. Leave us a review, give us a like, give us a subscribe, a follow, what all of those equivalent buttons on all of the social media platforms. Do that as well. If you want to support us even more, you can go to patreon.com/O3CGames and you can give us a few quid a month. You don't get anything for it other than our absolute adulation and love and thanks. But we very much appreciate it. You can chat to us individually. I'm on Twitter at Jonathan Dunn.
I'm on Twitter at Casper Marowitz for I don't know how long because it's really going to shit. But
yeah, I'm on X.
I refuse to say that, and I will not. And
no, it's bullshit.
I'm on Threads, which is the competition from
Meta.
the other billionaire, not so great guy, but maybe a little less awful than the Twitter guy. Maybe just a smidge. Like I don't know, like if a few billions off. Anyway, yeah, I'm at Casper Marowitz on that and Instagram or whatever on Threads, and I'm of course on the wonderful Discord, which I encourage you all to join because it is a lot of fun. We have all these. We have a little Zelda thread on there that is a ton of fun, and if you want to see even more delightful Tears of the Kingdom content, Jonathan and I constantly share all these videos we find on Reddit or whatever of all these people doing these incredible things that we haven't even remotely discussed that you can possibly do in this astounding, video game that is just beyond any other video game. And feasibly right now it seems like every day, and probably for the next 6 years it's going to be every week or every month, there'll be a new video that's going to blow everybody's mind about what you could possibly do, of whether it's do a volleyball game between two moblins, or throwing a bokoblin to one another, or if it's someone playing what is it? Ode to Joy with a bunch of different metal things and some laser gun that they've constructed out of seemingly nothing with Ultra Hand, or it goes on and on. It's just every single week there's some mesmerizing, or if it's someone diving from an island that has one of the longest waterfall you could possibly ever see in your life, and using a frozen weapon on it all the way down and creating seemingly 100 plus little pieces of ice without the game even blinking an eye. The game does not fall apart. The game creates every single block of ice and tells you thank you, and it's just this insane it's just this insane thing. Anyway, yes, to wrap it up, please join the Discord and come join the fun on the Zelda thread. It's lovely to talk to everybody. Everybody is wonderful on there, civil, joyful, has the same love of video games. None of that toxic stuff. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's a good place. It's a good place. And please do join us next time, where we will be diving into even more Tears of the Kingdom spoiler chat. And I can't wait.
We're not even going to say what part we're going to do because we have no idea what we'll get to and how. So just bear with us.